Aloha, and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. It is our opponent preview for Week 8 as the Packers travel down south to Jacksonville to test if Jordan Love is going to be felled by the same voodoo magic that once claimed both Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers before. Joe, this is about as trap game as trap games get in the NFL. Packers are coming off of three strong wins. Well, three good wins. 2 weeks they're playing the Lions potentially for the lead in the NFC North. And in between now and then, it's a game against the lowly Jaguars. They always talk about, there's no such thing as a trap game, all that kind of stuff. Talk about how you approach it and all that kind of stuff. Team really needs to focus in this week, though, because you can't skimp on these kind of wins.
I was going to do an article this week about the Packers and the Florida curse, and I got to looking, and there's not an actual Jaguars curse.
I was mentally doing that too because I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, now they don't have a great record when it comes to playing in Florida overall since like 1971.
Right.
I think they played 44 games and they've only won 21 of the 44, so they've lost 23 and tied one or something like that. Or they won 20, lost 23, tied one. But if you look at actual against the Jaguars, they've played 2, 4, 6, 7 times, and they've won 5 of 7.
And so, I think Rodgers was 2-0. I think Rodgers was 2-0 against the Jaguars in Jacksonville. So yeah, it's kind of a funky one. They're always weird games, though.
Right. So, but both teams are riding off of wins. The Jaguars is a little bit more of a soundly win than what the Packers had over the Texans. But there is going to be a little bit of jet lag because they're coming right off of the London trip. They do have the pieces, but they're also struggling a lot also.
Yeah, this is a team that it's on paper they should be better, but also it's a little bit of like a fantasy draft, like a Madden fantasy draft kind of team. The sum has never really equaled the the what is the individual parts added up. There's a bunch of names on this roster that you're kind of like, I recognize that name, but and a lot of it is because like, oh, these are all guys that the Jaguars have picked early in the draft because they're the Jaguars to many people. So be that as it may, Green Bay seems to have come out of the Texans game relatively healthy. The only kind of name that stands out in terms of the missing from practice is Quay, and that was kind of to be expected that he was knocked out so early from Sunday's game with the concussion, but he was at practice, so that's a good sign for him moving through the week. He didn't participate, but he was there doing rehab with the rehab group on the side. And so the general track is, if you're progressing, you're either you're participating or at least at practice on Wednesday. Thursday, you progress, participate in a limited fashion. The thing to watch out for is not, obviously the first one is for Quay to get back on the field, but then the next one is if he talks to the media, because talking to the media is one of the benchmarks in the concussion protocol. So we'll see where he stands. The other big news on the injury front is that Devonte Wyatt returned to practice today, which is a great sign. Really hope he can play this week because you'd like him to knock the rust off from missing the last 3 games with injury. And if he can get back this week, there's a lot of people who were doing a lot of hand wringing last week about, should he have gone on IR, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. He only missed 3 games if he plays this week. So if he had gone on IR, he'd still be on IR this weekend. So if he makes it back, then they made the right decision to keep him on the roster and just roll with the guy, leave him inactive on game day and stuff. So looks like most of the guys are trending in the right way for the Packers.
Right, and I think he said in the locker room media that he's trending in the right direction to play, or however he worded it. And so while it would be great, it would help out a lot. It's also not. I don't want to say it's not necessary to rush him back if he's not fully, because the Jags do have a decent run game. So it'll be, how do you want to word it? It would be more of a luxury to have him back this week than an absolute need. I I am still, I know we kind of had this discussion on Twitter, but I'm still not happy with how they did the transactions this week. I think it's a complete waste of, and I know you don't say, if you don't use them, you lose them type thing with the IR designations, but I still think it's a complete waste of one to, uh, have Jonathan Ford as your designated to return, and then you just go ahead and cut him anyway. You know, if that was the thought process, then you were better off coming up with an injury settlement and saying, "All right, we're going to give you this much for this many weeks, and at the end of those weeks, if you haven't picked up somewhere else and you're fully healthy, then we'll bring you back at that time on the practice squad, or we'll bring you back on the roster or whatever." But don't use up one of your spots and then just cut the guy. And then, you got to go through the whole process of bringing him back on the practice squad and all that anyway. So, especially when it comes to, all you did was bring Orsic back. And I think everybody can agree that that was one of the worst decisions to be made, was to bring Orsic back. There's got to be somebody out there that can long snap better than what Orsic can do. I just, that boggles my mind, especially when you have the kind of worry about Devontae Wyatt. Will he play? Is he going to be fully healthy and all that stuff? Because at least Ford would give you another guy to fill in that spot.
Yeah, and on one hand, it's like, okay, you still, you have the call ups and he's on your 90 man and all that kind of stuff. But I do agree with you. Like, this, like, on one hand, it's like he's back and he's available to play. But on the other, you basically use the IR DR spot. You only get 8 of them now. They changed the rule. So you basically use one of those 8 on a guy that, I know this is a little harsh to say it this way, but in a guy in Ford that you're almost banking on not playing for you this season, the way that transaction, it's like you use the designation to return on a guy that's like the ultimate break glass in case of emergency. Like, he's not even the first break glass. He's like inside. There's a second break glass of emergency inside the first break glass of in case of emergency box. So it is funky, but that's the route that they decided to go. The other bit of news on that front is Marshawn Lloyd is eligible, but they did not open his 21-day. This would have been the first week he was eligible, but they did not open his return window. The other big news out of Packers practice is Matt LaFleur has brought his old buddy Robert Saleh in to function as a backroom advisor to the offense, to which LaFleur basically said, like, he's going to be a guy that is going to be in the offensive meeting room to give insight on, like, this is how we would try to stop you, so look out for these things, for all intents and purposes. I joked at the time when it looked like Saleh was on his way out, or actually when he was fired, I joked that move happened 2 years too late because the Packers could have benefited from that a couple years ago. But it's no real surprise that LaFleur was able to lure one of his buddies in. And as much as some people are like, oh, like, why wouldn't he go to, team A, B, or C? It's hard to fire your defensive coordinator as a snap judgment reaction move to someone else getting fired from another spot. It's really hard to because it's not just a new coat of paint kind of thing. There's a lot of optics. There's a this was the backbone of the whole, like, why did LaFleur stick it out with Manunga and stay the whole season with Drayton? And it's like, right or wrong, he can't become the guy that's like, ugh, I hired the wrong guy, fire him kind of thing and stuff. And suffice it to say that in this case, it's helping the Packers because they brought another football mind into the building.
Well, you just got to basically go off of this. Good coaching decisions aren't made in mid-season. They're
Yep.
made in the off season when you have time to do your research, bring them in for interviews, and all. But no snap decision mid-season is going to make anything. I know a lot of people are also doing the, oh well, that must mean Halfley's only going to be here for the year. Halfley's only going to be. No, I predicted this a long ass time ago. Basically, as soon as Saleh got fired from New York, that LaFleur was going to try bringing him in as a consultant of some time, whether it was on the defensive side of the ball or whatever. They all have a history with him.
Yep.
Saleh was LaFleur's best man at his wedding. Halfley worked with Saleh in the 49ers
Back in 2018 or 19 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the year before he went to Ohio State.
Yeah, and before Saleh became the coordinator or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they all have a history with him. And that basically means Halfley is running a Saleh type scheme because it's a Shanahan coaching tree type scheme. So that doesn't mean Halfley's gone, especially
No.
when Halfley has already turned this defense around compared to what
Yeah.
Joe Barry and Pettin had it. So if anything, this is just extra help. Now
Yep.
I know LaFleur is saying, oh well, it's a fluid position and it's more of a part-time position, and he's going to be an offensive analyst. He's going to help us view our offense from the defense, but it's also to help Halfley. You can't tell me that it's not going to Halfley's not going to be able to come up
Yeah.
to Saleh and say, "Hey, what do I need to do different here? What do I need to do different there? What do I need to tell my edge rushers to get better pass rush? What do I need to tell my D linemen to stop the run a little bit better?" And that leads me to another situation where now everything's getting, well, this will come in the segment a little bit later, but now everybody's going after Rebovich for being a shit position coach. It's like, I can understand it in a way, but what everybody is also failing to remember, these are a bunch of young kids in the first year of a defensive scheme change.
And
Nothing changes overnight.
and on top of that too, Rebrovich is also in his first 7 games of this system too. Like, they're all learning together. Rebrovich was hired under the previous scheme and stuff. So it, we could go down a whole rabbit hole, and I do think LaFleur saying it's a fluid system is nothing to do with Halfley. It's more to say that if someone else does get fired, Saleh is on the short list to get hired by another team, kind of thing. So it's like this is a landing spot for him, but we know that he is short in terms of his time in the building, because more the percent chance that he finishes the season in Green Bay is like 5% or less. But
I think it depends on how far the Packers will push it.
Yeah.
If the Packers are looking at a Super Bowl ring, I think Saleh sticks around.
Oh yeah,
just so he can have that jewel to say, "Hey, Rodgers, look at this."
Yeah, and what I mean is like that he hasn't like made commitments to another team, kind of thing yet. Like,
right.
Obviously he can still be coaching, but like he'd have agreed in terms to like DC another team, kind of thing, or something like that. So
what his specialty is? Like,
I
Was he
hold
more of a
on.
D line guy or
Yeah, that was what I was trying to think of too. Is I do think he was a D. He's either a D line or a linebacker guy. So hold on. He was.
I can't remember. I just know he jumped right into
So he
coordinating.
was. Yeah. So he. What's it?
And
He.
usually with defensive guys, they can do a little bit of everything, but I know a lot of them
Yeah.
have their own specialty.
So he's coached both D line, but he's coached both in college. He coached D line for Michigan State and Central Michigan, uh, linebacking assistant at Georgia, and then he interned with the Texans, became their assistant linebacker coach in '09 and 2009 in the 2010 seasons. Was the Seahawks defensive quality control coach. So he's coaching under like Gus Bradley and oh shoot, the one who's the Redskins coach now, or the
Oh,
Commanders
Quinn,
coach now.
Dan Quinn.
Yes, thank you. And then what's it? And then he was the Jaguars linebacker coach from 2014 to 2016, then the 49ers coordinator from 17 to 20. So kind of fluid, like you said, fluid, but he's a front seven guy. And it makes sense when you look at where his defenses have been the strongest with the Niners and with the Jets. You know, the best secondary player between those two stops was Sauce Gardner, but you look at how those teams worked, it was stout up front, pressure, pressure, pressure. You couldn't do things up front and stuff. And then Halfley is more of a secondary guy. So it's kind of like you said,
Starting to reach
that's where that's where the
with
like yeah, it's and that's where some people are like, is he stepping on toes and stuff? I was like, I think you're right where he's a resource. He is a walking encyclopedia for Halfley to pick his brain on things and stuff like you
well, on
and
top of that, I am also kind of guiding it to if they do decide to move on from like a Repovich or somebody in that in season, then Saleh can step right in until they find the replacement that they want, if that's what Saleh wants. Which it sounds
yeah.
like he does. I mean, everybody kind of knew. Wasn't it the joke that had he not taken the Jets job, he probably would have ended up in Green Bay?
Yeah. Like it was what's it called? I can't remember. I know that LaFleur wanted to bring his brother over from the fort or from he wanted to hire his brother away from the 49ers when he took the Packers job. But also the thing is like Saleh was already the defensive coordinator of the Niners, so it's hard to like hire a guy away
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
lateral move kind of thing. But yeah, that's why the joke was it's like, oh good, the Jets hired him, so he'll get fired soon and Matt will get
Right.
to scoop his ass up kind of thing and stuff. But
Rams. I think LaFleur's brother was either with the Rams or the Jets, and that's who he was. Because I don't think it was quite the 49ers, was it?
no, it was the
Was he with
49ers
Shanahan? Okay.
because he was the one that Shanahan was just like, no, you cannot, because he wasn't a coordinator at the time, and that's why like it would have been, it would have been okay to like hire him away because he was like the quarterback coach and or like passing game coordinator or something like that. And so that's the way that you like keep Saleh if he like doesn't find a job that he likes next year is you let him become run game specialist or something like like they give those overwhelming titles to guys and stuff like that. So
And let's just say hypothetic. I know this is a game preview, and we've just kind of completely torpedoed it right now. But let's say hypothetically, they get tired of Bisaccia's shit and not being able to control his special teams. I'm
that
not saying Saleh will step into special teams, but that can allow somebody to come in as a special team coordinator, Saleh to take a positional job and become the assistant head coach,
yep,
which Bisaccia has right now.
yep.
And it all just depends on what Saleh wants. Does he want to be a head coach again, or does he just want to kind of work his way back up?
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's the other route he could go. And honestly, I would trust him to be a special teams coordinator. He'd probably have to bring in like a kicking specialist or something like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, but in terms of like the coverages and stuff, but the some people are like, oh, what does this mean for Halfley? The only reason
Nothing.
the only reason Saleh LaFleur would even be eyeing Saleh for the DC spot is if somehow some other team has already started to poke around about interviewing Halfley, which I doubt at this point. But we've seen guys who have been hired off of 1 year defense. But it would be a little different for Halfley because I know he's been in the NFL as a position coach before, but that was years ago. He has this 3 year break in between where he was a college head coach and stuff. So it's not apples to apples, but that would be like the only reason that, well, yeah, I'm just going to say that would be the only reason I'm going to talk about why Saleh would be the DC coordinator next year. So,
And that's been
yeah.
brought up on Twitter too. That supposedly there are rumors that there have been teams kind of snooping, seeing that Halfley is doing well, but it's all speculation, and it could just be speculation because Saleh has been in Green Bay.
Yeah.
And I know, like I said, I've torpedoed this whole thing, but it is interesting to see Saleh come in. Now, like I said, I predicted it from the start, but you have a guy who's been friends with your two main coaches on the Packers team.
Yeah.
It's not surprising to see him there. I think it surprised a little bit more when people actually zoomed into the photo of him and he had a practice script in his hand. And that's
then
when
LaFleur kind of explained it that he's like, yeah, he does, he has a position. So
yeah,
like it kind of explained it away in a sense. But yeah, like you said, that just kind of goes to show, kind of like I mentioned before, like this is a trap game because it is the Jaguars and uncommon opponent, disappointing outcomes, disappointing quarterback, whatever label you want to. It kind of comes to speak that it's more interesting for us to talk about Saleh's potential role, short and long-term role with the Packers than the Jaguars. But we'll diverge into
really, But I mean, I get what you're saying, but then again, on my point of view, it also shows that LaFleur is wanting to make his offense better. And the reason that I think that is because we've seen that, yeah, Jordan Love has been doing great and the offense has been doing great, but they've gone back to playing the half a game again. The Minnesota game, they played the second half great, but they played shitty the first half. The Texans game, they played great the first half and then they kind of trailed off during the second half. So if LaFleur can get a second set of eyes in there and say, all right, tell me what we can do to adjust and not have this half and half where we can play a full game, then, that's great for it. And they can go out, and the Jaguars are the perfect team to try that out on because we know what type of team the Jaguars are right now. That, yeah, they're not the best, but they're still fighting hard because they got weapons on it.
Yeah, and I think where Saleh could also be looking to help is this offense. It's doing a lot better than it was at this time last year. The record being flipped around from 2-5 to 5-2 speaks volumes. But they're running into a similar issue where they're not a consistent offense yet. It's like you look at, even the Rams game, this last game, it's big play, you're not seeing consistently those 10 to 12 play drives. I know they had one last week where they went 90 whatever yards and scored a touchdown, but then it's like they do that and then it's like 3 straight 3-and-outs or 2 3-and-outs and a 4-and-out kind of thing and stuff. And you possibly bring in Saleh to be like, okay, so we're hitting these big plays. Some of them are organic ones. Some of them are we're just better than you, the other team kind of ones. But what can we do better on a down-to-down basis to attack a defense kind of thing and stuff? And the Jaguars, like you said, they have talent on both sides of the ball. Like I kind of joked, this is a Madden franchise, a Madden fantasy draft kind of team. You've got the young, talented quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. You have his fast former college teammate in Travis Etienne, who's been honestly kind of disappointing as a pro, but also I'm not surprised because I always saw him as like more of a Reggie Bush type, not like a true lead back. And between the injuries and inability to just be a bell cow, it's kind of come to fruition. And then you've still got, you got some weapons. You've got Christian Kirk, who I blame for Devontae leaving Green Bay because he signed that damn contract of his.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas Jr., their rookie sensation, who has been excellent so far in the NFL.
The best receiver out of the drafted group this year.
Yep. And Gabe Davis, who came over from Buffalo. I think he's a little dinged up right now, but
yeah, he's hurt.
Also, yeah, he's been a solid contributor for the Bills the last few seasons. So good weapons. Evan Ingram is still it's one of those like he's super inconsistent, but he's the kind of guy that it's like, oh, who had 150 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns against the Packers? Oh, Evan Ingram. Shit. Like he's one of those kind of players. But then you look at this O-line and you're like, oh, like maybe this is why they're not so hot on offense. And Cam Robinson has, he's been okay, but he didn't participate and is dealing with a concussion this week. He would be their starting left tackle. Ezra Cleveland, I think he was with the Browns at one point. Or wait, Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No. He was the one that was getting mocked to Green Bay, and then Minnesota picked him. And then Mitch Morse, long time center, started with Kansas City, went to Buffalo, and I think he's on like his 12th season in the league at this point. Brandon Scherf, the former Commanders guard, and then Anton Harrison. So, yep, Hawkeye. And so you look at this group, and it's not going to be a sexy game for the Packers defense against this Jacksonville offense, but you gotta win up front. And this is a group that, especially with how much better the Packers defensive front has been playing the last few weeks, this is a game they should be able to dominate up front, because production wise, this is a very middle of the pack team. They rank, right down the middle in terms of yards per game, rush yards per game, pass yards per game, points per game. They're kind of like bottom third and stuff. So this is a game where you hope to just see them continue to build on the momentum they've gotten off to over the last few weeks. One of the things I want to see is, so Hafley has done a tremendous job scheming up pressure the last few weeks. All those exotic blitzes, the ones that Eric Wilson got his 2 sacks off of last week. The thing I want to see is just when he goes to straight 4-man rushes, and not even when he stunts or twists guys, but just to see more wins in pass rushes out of 4-man rushes. And you're starting to see Rashawn come to life. Getting Devontae back would be great. And Kenny has started to come to life too. Sorry, my wife we've been searching for her Halloween mask for it. For those of you that were born in the 90s, she is being one of the slime minions from the Power Rangers movie. The putty people from the first Power Ranger movie. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. I'm getting all of it mixed up. But so crisis averted on that front. But
I'm so sorry, Joe.
This is all, you tell her this is all being left in, so she's going to go out to the tens of people that listen to this damn thing.
We keep it interesting, and we keep it candid on Ohana Packers Edition. So that's how we roll. But
that's why I'm the side piece.
Joe said he's not editing that. No, she's not. But anyway, back to the podcast.
My job.
So back to the point. Where were we? Want to see the front four continue to ramp up as they've gone. I do think we've seen Kenny turn a corner. We've seen Rashawn start to literally turn corners the past couple weeks. Rashawn's got like 16 pressures in the last 2 games. And I think you're going to start to see this unit take off, because Rashawn looks more certain in his role. Kenny is learning when to hit when to hit to floor it, and when to hit the brakes a little bit and stuff. People don't appreciate how hard it is to go from a scheme where you're reading and reacting to everything in front of you to one where it's like hit the gas and go. But then, like I said, for a guy like Kenny who's played 8 seasons of hold the point of attack and look over a shoulder and find the ball, and then it's like, oh, you're telling me I can just go. And you've seen a lot of plays where he's looked just too excited to go, and you see him almost in mid-step, like, oh shit, like that was the running back and stuff. And last week you saw him gear down, play under control, and it's a promising sign, and you just want to see them build off of that this week.
Well, that's why I keep saying that even a lot of the Packer content creators, they just need to, my favorite segment, shut the fuck up, because they forget that this is all new for most of the players on this defense. Slayton, 3-4 player. Clark, 3-4 player. Quay, 3-4 player. These guys have been playing 3-4 since college. So this is still new for them. They're still trying to work things out on it. And, oh, well, they shouldn't have gave Kenny that. It looks like they shouldn't have gave Kenny that third contract, and Rashawn, they shouldn't have gave him his contract, and oh, Lucas has been looking like shit, so they shouldn't have drafted him, and it just drives me wild, because it's like, come on, guys, they're still ranked 13th in the league right now as a defensive unit. That's 7 games into a brand new system. 7 games into a brand new system. And they're 13th in the league. We haven't been 13th in the league since, what, 2010?
Yeah. It's been a while. Like, I think the closest is they've hit, like, if you look at 3-week windows, like, I think 2014 probably had a streak here and there kind of thing and stuff. And I think 2019 had a couple streaks, and then, they got smoked by a couple teams, and it was like, maybe it's not real and stuff. So the main thing is that with Hafley, it's trending upward. And it hasn't been everyone expected it to be from, like, we were down here with Barry last year, and they wanted it to be up here with Hafley from week 1. And it was really, like, in the middle of that. But the main thing is that you've seen improvement from the players. You've seen Hafley evolve. And that's the big part of it, is, like, Hafley's evolution as a play caller, a scheme developer. That's the most promising part of it. And it's really good that a lot of his exotic stuff has worked so well. And that's why I said I want just his very, like, core 4-man rushes, coverages to start to take off. It was a really good step that last week they finally had a strong defensive game where they really dominated the Texans without turnovers. They went through a game without forcing a turnover, and they still held an NFL offense, a good one, under 200 total yards, which is just an excellent outcome. I don't care what anyone says about. And everyone's like, "Oh, they gave up 22 points." You're supposed to win that game 9 times out of 10 in the modern NFL if you have a good offense yourself. So,
well, and that'll go on to something that I have, another thing I have in the next in our one of our next segments too. So, but yeah, I completely agree. People are overblowing a lot of the situations, and they're under. I don't want to say underblowing, because that's not a fucking term. They're underselling things that they should be a little bit more worried about. And so just relax.
just like the ayahuasca head said, yeah, RELAX, relax. He was right about that. But
it would be a lot different if we were still seeing results like we did under Joe Barry. But we're not.
Exactly. So guys are being put in positions to succeed. And this is a week where I'm really excited to see what Bullard, Evan Williams are going to be able to do. If Quay can't go, what that means for Cooper. Maybe you see Hopper start to get, at some point you want to see Hopper start to get on the field because he was always going to be behind Cooper because they were, this is kind of like the Musgrave Tucker Kraft thing from last year where it was like Musgrave was always the guy they were going to just force feed. They flat out told you this guy is going to get snaps. We're going to get him the ball and we're going to live with the down spot. Tucker was the guy that it's like, is he going to get a chance to do anything except get his ass kicked everywhere? Not quite the same, but same idea where it's like from day one they said we have got to find a way to get Edgerrin's explosive athleticism and physicality on the field, and they've done. The offseason injury, the preseason injury hampered that, and it's slowed the development curve. But we've seen his snaps increase on a week to week basis. Hopper was always going to be behind, but especially if Quay misses this game, you kind of wonder if maybe they start to like. And I'm not saying he's going to play like half the game, but he gets a handful of snaps here and there, kind of, and he might end up with no more than like 9 in the game, but those will be the first 9 reps of defense in his regular season NFL career. So really excited to see what they do. And like I said, if Wyatt can get back this week, I do think I agree with you that it's not super important that he's back this week, but it would be good for him to kind of knock some rust off against this Jags offense before you go against that Lions offense next week. That's going to be so physical. They're going to just, try to do what they did last year in Green Bay, which was just embarrass Green Bay and put the game in a position where we just weren't able to come back from it. So got to prepare for that. But this is a good week for the defense to put good stuff on film. And honestly, this is a week where McKinney should have a shot to get back on the interception train because Lawrence will put the ball up in harm's way because he throws with anticipation. This line isn't very good, and especially if Robinson misses the game, he'll be down his starting left tackle, and he will put the ball up and, trust his guys to come down with it. And I think that McKinney should have a shot at an interception or two come Sunday.
The only one that I'm really scared of out of the wide receiver room is going to be Brian Thomas.
Yeah.
And because that guy has been lightning this year. And I like I said, I was gonna write an article, but all of a sudden I got hit with writer's block, and I was struggling to put words on the page. But I was saying that I would like to see Jair go up against Brian Thomas, but the thing that hurts is Thomas is 6'4".
Yep.
But the reason I would like to see Jair go against Thomas is because you have the veteran who's physical, who can cover, it's got the speed, he's physical, and he's got the experience going against the younger, more inexperienced guy. And I think it would throw Thomas off to have to go against that.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing is like, I don't think Jair will cover him the whole game, but I think Hafley will go to it enough early to get in Thomas's head, throw him off enough, and give enough situations where Lawrence is like, nope, can't go there, kind of thing. And then the big one to me is Bullard has been playing a lot. He's been the primary slot defender recently, and that means that he is probably going to be covering Christian.
We were
Is that
doing
me?
so
No! So I was just saying that Bullard is my one to keep an eye on because, yeah, he's probably going to draw Christian Kirk in the slot, and that's a big test for a rookie. And I know like grading hasn't necessarily been I don't think it's been super harsh on Bullard, but also like he doesn't have like, this like super this grade to be enamored with or anything, but I think he's done well, as a incoming rookie who started from week 1 and has played all over the place on Hafley's defense in like a variety of roles, and he's done all of them solidly to well. And I want to see if he can take that next step. So that'll be a big one for them. But it's going to start up front. Like I said, this is not on the level of like the Titans game, but you want to see this is kind of more like that Rams game where it's like they should be able to do stuff against this O line, but you want to see them keep having an aggressive mindset. On the Packers offensive side, there's like I said, this Jaguars defense has a lot of names of guys that I'm like, I would have been okay if Green Bay drafted these guys. The big name up front is Josh Hines Allen out of Kentucky. He has turned into a very solid pass rusher. You know, classmates with Rashawn in terms of draft class. And he's become a really good player. Travon Walker came off a double-digit sack season last year. He's got 6 already this season. And then old nemesis Eric Armstead, formerly of the Niners, signed with the Jaguars this season. He was questionable last week, and he's dealing with a shoulder injury this week. Who knows? Maybe Saleh could give a little bit of insider, inside baseball ideas on how to best take advantage of Armstead. That's kind of the kind of advanced scouting you want to get from that kind of thing. But this will be a solid test for the Green Bay O-line. This front four has talent. The Green Bay O-line has played better. Rasheed Walker, in particular, has really started to cut down on his penalties. And you just want to see them continue to improve. And some people are like, oh, they kind of got exposed last week against the Texans. Texans had the best pressure rate in the NFL. They were going to get pressure at some point. And that was one of my things with how LaFleur called the game last week, where I was kind of like, what are we doing? We're spending too much time trying to, get the ball outside, just attack. So as much as it's on the O-line to perform this week, it's also on LaFleur to scheme up this game to keep this Jaguars front four off kilter, because if you can, I think that their second and third levels can be taken advantage of. So
I think this is the type of game that Jordan Love can explode in. They do have players on their defense, but it's not a great defense. I think they're ranked 27th in the league or something like that. Or maybe it's even 27th in run defense and 31st in pass or something along those lines.
So they're 27th overall in yardage, 30th in points per game. Against the run, they're 6th, but that I think is kind of a sheep or wolf, or it's a false. It's false because they're giving up the 31st most pass yards per game, and I forget how many pass yards per game. Yeah, they're giving up the 31st most touchdowns per game. So, yeah, it's not a great defense. Like I said, we've both been kind of bouncing back and forth on, the sum does not add up to what you'd think the individual parts should add up to. So,
the takeaway game, I'm pretty sure that the Packers are +7 and the Jags are -4 on takeaways. So this should be a game where, as long as Jordan keeps his head, the mistakes should be low and the points and yardage should be high. But there's really not much more to talk about. We know what the Packers have got to go into or got to do to go in with the Jaguars. They just got to be smart about what they're doing. They don't need to overlook them and overlook them. It is Florida. Stay hydrated. It just be smart about things. Don't overlook them and focus on the Lions, because that's when you can be undercut. But yeah, there's not much more I can say about this game.
Yeah, one of the names to watch is Foye Oluokun. He is their starting will. He is activated, designated to return from IR. He's been dealing with a foot injury, but I don't know. I haven't gotten a feel on how ready he is to return. He's a good space player, coverage player, but like I said, he's missed the season up to this point. So who knows what version of him you'll be getting if he comes back. In the secondary, it's a bunch of the one name that sticks out to me is Andre Cisco, safety from Syracuse. I wanted the Packers to draft him a few years ago. But other than that, and they should be seeing old friend Darnell Savage on Sunday as well. So we'll see. But like you said, I just think the Packers have too many weapons on offense for Jacksonville to cover up. It's just going to be can Green Bay and I do think, like you said, this is going to be a game where Green Bay, to protect its defense, they're going to try and possess the ball. LaFleur always does, but you want to just be able to lean on this defensive line, tire them out, and just control time of possession, control the pace of the game, play it on your terms, and dictate the action that way. And that way, LaFleur would probably tell you, like, if he can win this game with just 5 offensive drives, he would. Like, just to, if every drive was like an 8-minute slobber knocker, he'd be like, let's score 4 touchdowns, pack it up, and go home kind of game. And like you said, it's in Jacksonville. It's the noon kickoff for Central Time. Expect the Packers to be wearing green. The Jaguars love to do that to their opponents. They like to wear their whites at home, make the opponent wear their home color, so that it's a darker jersey in the full sunlight. So hydration is going to be key. And yep,
Football.
yeah, just clean football. That's the biggest one. Is, as much as I've said, Lawrence has a tendency to turn the ball over. He only has 3 interceptions so far this season, but he has had the tendency to throw them in bunches in the past. And for Love, got to take care of the football this week. Start or end the trend or end the streak of consecutive games with an interception this week. Take care of the football. Let's get this road win. But that's really all I got for the game. How about you, Joe? Anything else sticks out to you this week?
Not really. Just, I think we can jump into our next 2 segments because we're kind of running long on this because of the mystery mask and all that stuff. So
take it away, Joe.
sorry about that. Like I was telling Mike, I was having a laugh fest earlier at work and my chest is hurting. So again, I didn't write any of these down, so they're coming off the top of my head, but it should be fairly easy. I am going to go over under 1.5 interceptions for this Packers defense.
I'm going to go over. I think, like I said, the combination of the pressure they should be able to get on this O-line and Lawrence's tendency to put the ball up, I think they're going to have an opportunity to get potentially 3 or 4 this week, I think.
My number was going to be 3 because I think Jair's going to have one, I think Xavier's going to have one, and I think Evan Williams is going to have one. So, yeah, I'm taking the over on that. Over under 225.5 for Love and passing yards.
I'm going to say over just because of how vulnerable this Jaguars defense is to the pass.
I want to take the over, but I just have this friggin' feeling that LaFleur is going to shove the running game down the throats. So I'm going to take the over, but I also would not be surprised if we're sitting at Jordan Love with like 220, but Jacobs has got like 120, and Wilson has 75, and Brooks has another 50 on top of that. So that wouldn't surprise me much. We'll go with this final one, and then we'll get into my quick segment, and then we'll call her good. We'll go 2.5 sacks for the Packers defense.
I'd say over.
I want to be different from you, so I'm going to say under, but I'm going to say that there's going to be a shit ton of pressure.
Yeah. Like I said, to get to 3 interceptions, that means you can't get sacks on those plays. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my segment real quick. So the first one I'm going to do comes from Jacob Morley. And I'm kind of hot and cold about Jacob Morley anyway. I don't know how you're feeling. I know he's a friend of show, Jacob Westendorf and guys like that, but I'm kind of hot and cold on him anyway. But the tweet is, or he was replying to Wendell Ferreira, and Wendell said Lucas Van Ness has had only 4 pressures the entire season. And Morley replied, the worried meter has been activated for Lucas Van Ness. And it seems like I've had to do this week in and week out. And I've already went off on it earlier in the episode, but he is a second-year player. He's on his second defensive coordinator. We all knew he was going to be a little bit of a project when he got drafted. And while the numbers haven't been there, he has still been consistently in the backfield. I don't know what more you want. I know you see guys like Will McDonald and that, and here's the big thing. Everybody wanted Will McDonald. Everybody wanted Will McDonald. It didn't happen. They took Lucas Van Ness. Will McDonald also has more snaps played. He's playing on a defense that's relying on him more, whereas Lucas is rotating in and out with a group of edge rushers. So he's not getting the constant playing time. And I know this is going to sound biased because I'm the Hawkeye fan and Lucas is a Hawkeye, but anybody with a friggin' brain can see this. Yes, the numbers aren't there, but he's still consistently getting pushes. He's still consistently around the ball. Give him a chance. What is it we always say, Mike? I feel like a broken record with this. The first year you're learning to play all over again. The second year is when you kind of start making your mistakes. And the third year is when you put it all together. We're 7 games into his second season. Relax. Give it time. So basically, Morley and everybody else that's saying the same shit, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not just Morley. And Morley's honestly was one of the more tame ones. But and first off, the one that stat that Ferrer is quoting, I'm kind of like, I don't understand how. I know it's not a good number, but 4 just seems so low because
he always seems like he's in the backfield.
Yeah, and it's one of those where it makes you like question, okay, what are we determining a quote unquote pressure to be? Because he's flushed the quarterback from the pocket numerous times. He's got the 1 sack. He's got a few other QB hits that, and a couple that didn't count because he had that one really weak roughing the passer call or whatever that one game and stuff. And so, no, like it's the it's sort of the it's sort of the Creed Humphrey Josh Myers thing to a certain extent. It's sort of that where like, especially because McDonald is got the he's got the sexy stats, he's got the high, like you said, but he's also being relied on.
Yep.
Lucas, and to add on to what you said about you're learning the ropes, he is relearning the ropes because it's a different system. And we've seen the one part I do wonder is we've seen Rashawn's role. They've unleashed the wrinkle that Hafley started to use Rashawn as a stand-up interior rusher. Now does Lucas get to be an interior rusher as well on certain snaps from a down lineman position as opposed to Rashawn being from a stand-up position? I'm with you. You've got to be more patient with it. This was always going to be the long term. The only consternation, and consternation is a hard word for me to even use in this. The only question I had with the only question I consternation consternation. The only hesitation I had with the Lucas pick was I really liked Christian Gonzalez, and in a similar draft in 2018, I wanted the pass rusher in Harold Landry, and Goot went and took the corner in Jair. And in my head, I was like, this is 2018 all over again. There's these pass rushers that I like, but there's this corner that Goot should really like. And I thought, Goot must be looking at this like 2018, except he didn't have to make a trade in this scenario kind of thing. But it goes to show
technically
you that
he did. The pick for Lucas was the one that they got from the Jets in the Rodgers trade.
Oh, but it just goes to show that how much Goot thinks of Lucas he views him, I think, in the same vein as Rashawn. I don't think they're the same player. Very similar in terms of their build, athleticism, play style. Like, but it's a three, like you said, it's a 3 year plan. They're playing. They took the home run swing. They swung from their asses, as David Ortiz would say. That they're gonna get another top flight, just alien athlete, body of Adonis pass rusher. You've seen the fly at this point, or at the end of last season. What was everyone saying about Lucas? Oh, he had as many sacks as Rashawn did in his second season at the end of his first season. I thought Lucas was turning a corner at the end of last season, especially as Rashawn hit the wall in terms of like his, he hit the wall coming back from his torn ACL the year before. It takes time. Rashawn is just figuring out his standing and how to best impact the game in this defense. Kenny just figured out. Rashawn's in his 5th season. Kenny's in his 9th season already, or whatever it is. It's gonna, or 6th season for Rashawn. It's gonna take time for Lucas. It always was going to. No reason to panic or rush it at this point. Would I love for him to do more? Of course I would. We want all of our players to be just machines and stuff, but that's the thing is this defense has 20 sacks. The leading sack man is Preston with 2.5. That means there's a shit ton of guys with 2.5, 2, 1, 1.5 sacks. So it's not like one guy's got all the sacks. Yes, you want pressure numbers and all that kind of stuff. The one I just want Lucas to do is just tackle better, because that was the one that I was more disappointed in last week. And it's just weird because he was a guy that in college was like, if you saw him get to the ball carrier, that guy did not get away kind of thing. And so that's the part. And like you said, it's incremental. Just do this little thing better. Just do this little thing. He's going to get there. He's like Rashawn, where he's so physically gifted and he has the motor and the drive to be great. He's gonna get there. It's just gonna take time.
Right. And to be fair, yeah, Lucas played in a 4-3 in Iowa, but he did play more interior than he did on the edge at Iowa.
On passing downs, especially. Yeah.
Right. So maybe it would be a better situation to put him inside than out. But it is what it is. So the next one I got is from so the account that this person is replying to is ML Football, and ML Football is talking about the Tucker Kraft touchdown catch. It says, Jordan Love, precision is sick. This throw is perfect. Most accurate QB in the NFL. Well, Mr. Kalen Bullock decided to respond to it and said, perfect, ? The ball went through my hands, laughing emoji. What I got to say to you, Mr. Kalen Bullock, if that's how you pronounce your name, I don't care. But what I got to say to you is, yeah, it went through your hands. But why did it go through your hands? Because it was a perfectly precision pass that snuck through your hands to the person it was meant to go to, who was behind you. So, yeah, had you made if you would have closed your hand quicker, you probably could have had another interception in the game, whatever. But you didn't. Jordan Love was able to place that ball in the right spot that you couldn't make the play, but his man could. So yes, perfect pass, perfect precision. It doesn't matter if it went through your hands or not. It was the perfect throw. Do we want to see throws like that? Yeah, they're fun to watch, but it kills you inside because you know it can be intercepted at any time. But he made you look foolish because you couldn't catch the damn ball, but Tucker did. So, Kalen Bullock, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that was funny. I was just laughing at it because it's not often that you see the player involved in the play respond to it and stuff. But okay, for what the play did, it was perfect. There was the perfect velocity on the ball, perfect height, perfect placement, that it was high enough and hard enough of a throw that Bullock was never going to get there in time. if we're gonna pick nits and all that kind of shit, if Love throws it more up the seam, Tucker probably catches that standing up, and it's a touchdown, but it's not as exotic as it is when he's throwing it through a guy and stuff. But it is just hilarious that it's like, and the stage is different, but this is why Ryan Clark to this day cannot stand air. It's not the off-field shit, it's not any of that stuff. Ryan, in his heart of heart, believes that he should have had 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl when it was the Steelers against us. And he always lauds Rodgers because he's like, but that goddamn number 12, he put it an inch too high or an inch too far for me to get to it. And then the one is the one that he did tip. It's the touchdown to Jennings where he does tip it actually, but Rodgers throws such a perfect spiral that it barely dislodges it out of its spiral rotation. This is kind of the same thing, except like I said, it's not the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's just funny because it's like you can say whatever you want, but it's still a touchdown, and y'all still lost the game at the end of the day.
And it was still the perfect pass because
Yep.
he put it right where he needed to put it.
Yeah.
So my last one here is to a former player. And I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier about the whole touchdowns, interceptions kind of thing that we're dealing with Jordan. This is from Kurt Benkert. Quote, why do people on this app act like interceptions are as bad as touchdowns are good? Interceptions don't directly lead to points. Touchdowns are points. Touchdowns in the red zone are worth more than 2 field goal trips in the red zone. Touchdowns in the red zone win you games. Fair. Touchdowns are great. But when are we starting to act like interceptions are no problem? Interceptions are drive killers. Interceptions can end games. Interceptions aren't a great stat. Now, yes, it's up to your defense to come back out and make a stop so the other team doesn't score points or whatever. But here's the thing. Let's say you're the defense. You just went out and raised hell and got a 4 and out. Well, you've used up so much energy, you're zapped. Now your quarterback comes out and on the first play throws an interception. What's that mean for you as a defensive player? Now, after zapping your energy, you don't even get a breath. You have to go right back out on the field and make another stop. So while, yes, I'm not overly concerned with the Jordan Love stuff as of yet, because even though his projections don't look good going forward, like we said last time on last episode, he's projected to get 27 interceptions by the end of the season. That doesn't look great. But we know most likely he's not going to hit 27 interceptions. It's going to be a lot less. But there is nothing more that you can do to piss off your defensive players and your defensive coordinator than continuously going out there and throwing interceptions. And interception should be something you know a lot about, Mr. Kurt Benkert, because, there's a reason why you're not on an NFL team right now. I get you. I never made it even to college ball. And you made it all the way in NFL, and I have a lot of respect for that. But you also have to realize that people are making a big deal about interceptions because it's a bad stat for a reason. It's a bad moment for a reason. How many games have been lost because that quarterback has tried to force something and the interception happened? How many has Jordan Love alone cost the Packers because he's thrown a last-minute interception?
The season ended last year on an interception. Yeah.
Right, and how many games last year did? Oakland? Or I guess it's not Oakland, it's Las Vegas. San Francisco. There's a couple more I'm forgetting off the top of my head. Help me out, Mike. What are other two were the ones that...
Let's see. Detroit kind of like it wasn't the last play of the game, but interceptions here and there doomed them. Um, oh, the Giants, like I said, same. The Giants wasn't on the last play of the game, but interceptions were a problem that game. Yeah. So the Vegas game, the 49ers playoff game, those are examples of where an interception, like, it flat out ended the game for the Packers. But also in the course of the game, interceptions killed it. And to the point you were making about, okay, the scenario this past week was, the first drive one, okay, not good, but the defense held him to a field goal. But his second interception, what happened? The defense gets off the field after a 9-play drive. They're playing already on a short field because special teams gave up the 40-yard kick return. They give up a 9-play, 23-yard drive, give up a long field goal. Okay, no harm, some harm, but not really on their back. They're still in the lead. Jordan goes out, first play, throws an interception. Like you said, you just dug the special teams out of a bad return, a 40-yard return. You held Houston's offense down, limited the damage, and then now you got to come back after being out there for like 8 minutes of game time, 9 play, or not 8 minutes, but like 4 minutes of game time, 9 plays, and it's like, oh shit, what? Like we didn't even get to drink Gatorade on the sideline, kind of thing. Like there's guys who are probably like, it's that situation where they're like just sitting on the chairs to talk to their coach, and someone goes turnover, and they're like, huh? So yeah, it's not good. It's not anything to be minimalized. And the stupid thing, the part that deserves the shut the fuck up from Benkert is he worships at the altar of the guy who was allergic to throwing interceptions, except till now because he's old and can't move very well. But he would never have said these words in the presence of his demigod because he knows that Aaron would have given him stink-eyed his ass into oblivion. So, Kurt Benkert, for the 40 gazillionth time this season, shut the fuck up.
Exactly. And like I said, I understand it. I don't want to sound too much like a prick with this, but yes, he made it to the league. Yes, he had his cup of tea in the league, but there's a reason why you're not on teams right now. You're not as great as you want to pass yourself off as at the moment. Now that's great. You're trying to get into the media side of things. You're trying to get into the content creator side of things, whatever. But stuff like this is going to put you on the wrong side of content creators. This is going to make you more of the Pat McAfee and the Colin Cowards and the Skip Baylesses, the ones that people don't like and don't want to listen to. Because you're acting like it's nothing. Well, it is something. And even Jordan has said, yeah, I know, I got to clean things up, but I'm not going to change the way I play. So, yes, Kurt Benkert, shut the fuck up. And we probably should wrap it up pretty quick because it sounds like Mike's wife's trying to throw stuff at him.
It is that time, but I want to thank you for joining us on this opponent preview. We are talking about the Jaguars, if you've forgotten at this point, because this is about a half hour longer than our usual preview episodes. But please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Got 2 great initiatives going in our shop: cancer awareness and military appreciation. That's the 2-word phrase I've been searching for a month on that one. God fun it. So please support those 2 causes through all of our merch, blog posts. I know we've been a little slow on those recently, but we are getting the machine churning again, and streams of the episodes are posted on there as well. Follow the podcast on social media at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram, and then just search Ohana Packers Edition on Facebook. You got to be following those to be eligible for drawings, any sort of new product from the shop will be announced there. Episode drops, article drops will all be announced across all social media platforms. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. And positive or negative comments, we want to hear it all so we can produce the content you're looking for. The Packers look to keep pace with the top of the division this week as they travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. They'll hope to record their sixth win, like we said, ahead of the big showdown in Detroit against Detroit next week. The game is in Lambeau, not in Detroit. So that's Iowa Joe. I'm Mike. Go Pack Go, and aloha.